Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Napheesa Collier is trying to destroy the WNBA from within, burn it to the ground, being incredibly hypocritical, and she is getting massive praise for doing so as some courageous leader. As you can tell, I probably have a different take than what you were getting from everywhere else. So hear me out. You may agree, you may disagree, but I think it's worth considering. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate all your support. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Shout out to the 19th. So let's dig in. In her exit interview, Napheesa Collier decided that instead she was going to read a prepared statement instead of speaking from the heart and trying to connect and let people know how she's feeling about this season and the future. She gave you basically a owner of a competitor league speech, and I'm going to tell you why in a moment. So let's take a listen to this. I don't know if I'm going to play the whole thing because it's about 4 minutes long, but definitely going to play the first about 115 or so. That's where all the real juicy stuff is in terms of what she says about the WNBA that we need to get into. And keep in mind, and I'll probably mention it again, what I say here is in no defense of Cathy Engelbert. I'm just saying that maybe there's not a hero. Maybe there's not a good side in this conflict.
And I want to be clear, this conversation is not about winning or losing. It's about something much bigger. The real threat to our league isn't money, it isn't ratings, or even missed calls, or even physical play. It's the lack of accountability from the league office. Since I've been in the league, you've heard the constant concerns about officiating, and it has now reached levels of inconsistency that plague our sport and undermine the integrity in which it operates. Whether the league cares about the health of the players is one thing, but to also not care about the product we put on the floor is truly self-sabotage. Year after year, the only thing that remains consistent is the lack of accountability from our leaders. Sorry, I had to walk here in my boot. I'm kind of out of breath. The league has a buzzword that they've rolled out as talking points for the CBA as to why they can't pay the players what we're worth. That word is sustainability. But what's truly unsustainable is keeping a good product on the floor while allowing officials to lose control of games. Fans see it every night. Coaches, both winning and losing, point it out every night in pregame and postgame media. Yet leadership just issues fines and looks the other way. They ignore the issues that everyone inside the game is begging to be fixed. That is negligence.
Okay, Napheesa Collier, we have a lot to unpack here. I want you to keep two things in mind. Napheesa Collier is part of the leadership of the Players Union, but she is also, as I said, the owner and owner, a big owner of a competitor league to the WNBA. That is very, very important to remember. Let's talk about some of the things she said. Accountability. She's talking about the accountability of the leadership. Now remember, Cathy Engelbert, and again, none of this is in defense of Cathy. You've heard me tear into Cathy plenty of times. But I think the reflex of, oh, this is wonderful and courageous and leadership from Napheesa Collier also has to be, brought down a little bit and kind of dragged into the reality of the situation. Let's talk about accountability. What about the players and their accountability, Napheesa? We haven't seen a whole lot of that. A lot of the new fans have not liked what they see from the players in terms of their ability on the court, in terms of their entitlement, in terms of how they treated the fans, in terms of this whole pay us what you owe us stuff when you owe probably hundreds of millions of dollars to the NBA. And I know some people dispute that, but the bottom line is the WNBA absolutely has not been making money. So when you talk about accountability, do you mean, I don't know, paying back the NBA before you get big increases with the new CBA going forward? Is that going to be part of the CBA where it's going to be, okay, these are the salary increases, but X percentage of it is going to go to the NBA every year until they are paid back? You've been involved in a league that has never had to have any accountability because they've had another league keep it going. Now, as to her comments about the officiating, I am 100% in agreement that the officiating has been absolutely terrible. But let's not kid ourselves. For those of you that are sports fans in general, you're watching the NFL, you're watching the NBA, even probably baseball, and at least in terms of balls and strikes. there are a lot of problems now. I don't know if it's just a lack of quality nowadays in sports leagues with officiating and umpires and people not wanting to get into it, or if it's the fact that everyone can bet on everything in the palm of their hand nowadays, or maybe it's more likely a combination of the two. But that is not, believe it or not, unique to the WNBA. Now, it's unique to the WNBA in terms of this whole idea of physicality, which again, the league all of these years has prided itself on. Okay? When exactly have the players ever talked about having any pride in the quality of the product being put on the court? We've heard a whole lot of entitlement talk. I haven't heard anything about the product of on the court. Um, to the comment about the fines, all leagues issue fines. At least, well, I shouldn't say that because people will find, but all major sports leagues that I know of, NFL, NBA, etc., issue fines when players and coaches are critical of officiating. That's sort of just a standard thing. And oh, okay. So again, let me just take a step back. I'm begging the question of when. When was all this stuff she keeps talking about all, makes it sound like there's been all these people talking about the officiating for ever, basically, since the WNBA existed. Is that really true? Because it seems to me, Nafisa, you were all silent about the constant attacks on Caitlin Clark, not just the clutching and grabbing and all the stuff they were getting away with within the game and the dribbling, but the really, really dirty stuff, the hitting her on the head constantly, the Marina Mabry stuff, the Kennedy Carter stuff, the Dejanay Carrington stuff. What was your response to all that? You all talked about, with pride, I might add, it's a physical league. And, basically, Caitlin's got to suck it up because that's the way the game is played in the WNBA. Again, Napheesa Collier, this is why another reason I go by, I went and made sure I pointed out that she is a part of the players union and the head of the players union. Remember that ridiculously long novel-like seventh grade level writing in terms of a statement from the players union when they tried to get Christine Brennan, the Christine Brennan, who has done more for women and women's sports than Napheesa Collier could ever hope to do. They tried to get her fired for simply asking Dejanay Carrington a question about her intent when she basically stabbed Caitlin Clark in the eye. Where is the accountability there? Where is the cry for good officiating there? You are a hypocrite, Napheesa Collier. You are 100% a hypocrite, ignoring all of this stuff to now play victim because you own a competitor league. So please, please stop with your self-righteous, selfish revision of history. And if you're so concerned with the product on the court, maybe you get some players to make a layup, but also maybe you get your players to, I don't know, like we've said before, take some media training, maybe try and be a little bit likable when you do press conferences and so forth. I don't know, maybe try to not constantly play victim, try to not constantly attack the Indiana Fever fans and the Caitlin Clark fans, and to the point where you get investigations on fake nonsense, where you have Alyssa Thomas multiple times talking about these things that she heard yelled at her, of which there is zero proof. Brittany Griner and the things she said she's heard yelled at her from Caitlin Clark fans, of which there is no proof. Isn't that part of the product that we were talking about in Napheesa Collier? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that is part of the product that you were talking about. Now, again, I might not go through the whole thing. We got 3 minutes left, but I think we'll catch a couple of the beginning things because you kind of get the gist of where she's going with all this.
At Unrivaled this past February, I sat across from Cathy and asked how she planned to address the officiating issues in our league. Her response was, well, only the losers complain about the refs. I also asked how she planned to fix the fact that players like Caitlin, Angel, and Paige, who are clearly driving massive revenue for the league, are making so little for their first 4 years. Her response was, Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything.
Okay, let's address those real quick. First of all, now she's getting in, obviously, to stuff she could completely be making up. I have no reason after this past year or so to believe that anything Napheesa Collier is saying is true. Now, of course, we're also talking about Cathy Engelbert, so it may very well be true, but this sounds a little bit like a hit job, like maybe there were some of the same vibes going on here, but she's relaying it in a way that makes Cathy look as bad as possible with what she is saying. And the thing about Caitlin Clark is just weird. Like, I'll correct that if she did say it, like I think we have here. She signed that Nike deal, I believe, right back in April. Signed 8-year, $28 million Nike deal, which was actually too low. But that's she signed that before she even went into the WNBA. We've got all the NIL stuff in college, so a lot of players coming out of college, top college players or top college players that are marketable, don't even need to go pro, and they're going to be set for life financially. So I think that's something that's not really. I don't know if Kathy said that. I think that would be bizarre if she did, but she might have. You may have noticed that she also mentioned unrivaled. Of course, had to get that in there.
And in that same conversation, she told me players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal that I got them. That's a mentality driving our league from the top. We go to battle every day to protect a shield that doesn't value us. The league believes it succeeds despite its players, not because of them.
When have you gone to battle for the WNBA shield, so to speak? And you talk about the leadership at the top, and that's what they think. Again, wouldn't part of that product, if you actually cared about growing the game and getting paid what you want, again, it goes back to, wouldn't you try and be likable instead of trying to drive off all the fans that have made you relevant? Do you realize if this was 2023, you could be given the same exact speech and not a single damn person out there would have any idea that it happened? Absolutely wild. But okay, this is going to get too, I don't want to go through all of it because she says a lot of things like that, things she's attributing to Cathy that she's saying Cathy said. Well, one last thing I do want to mention, it's not on here because I think it was in a like a Q&A part and I haven't seen video of it. She said that when asked if she expects a fine for what she just said, she said seems like all of free speech is being fined right now. Um, yeah, this kind of irks me. This is again where it goes back to the victim mentality and the emotional play that she's going for, because again, if they do it right, because that's just the way it works. The female players of the WNBA who haven't made a lot of money because the league just simply hasn't, no one's watched, but they're going to get the favor of the media and probably the people out there because it's a natural reaction. But here you go again, all the leagues fine. And I'm not saying at certain points it doesn't get ridiculous. We've seen that with the WNBA, right? Caitlin Clark's tweet getting fined for that, or there was something that Sophie said that was ridiculous that she got fined for. But to make it sound like this is a WNBA and a free speech issue simply isn't. You're employed by the league. All employers, whether people realize it, I know maybe it's bizarre for Gen Z or whatever to understand this. People can't wrap their brains around it, but when you work for an employer, they're going to have standards. You represent them, and they're going to have certain standards. And if you don't like those standards, you don't want to meet those standards, you don't have to work there. It is not a free speech issue here. It is she talks about the product on the court and what's best for the league and all that. Well, guess what? Yes, and this is why I said that this is not a defense of Cathy. I think the officiating is trash. I think a lot of it is because that's the way they want it officiated. And yes, it absolutely does have to be fixed. But also, constantly having players and coaches out there like this and bashing it, you are damaging the league. And that is why they do it. And we can get into how much should be enforced and all of that, but it is not a free speech issue. It is where your employer, here's the standard that we have. If you want to work here, you can go work elsewhere if you want. Like it or not, that is the way it is. To make it a free speech issue is ridiculous. And that is another reason why I look at other things Napheesa says and I say, I don't know that I want to give her the benefit of the doubt because I've seen her be very manipulative in the things she says and how she handles these things. So I'm just saying, I don't know that there is a good guy, or for those of you nowadays easily offended, a good woman or a good person on this. I don't know if either side I would consider good. You all know how I feel about Cathy Engelbert. You all know how I feel about how a lot of these players are behaving, and I think you've all seen that, especially with their stuff that they've addressed toward the Caitlin Clark fans. we all know there's a lot of very unlikable players, so they both got a lot of changes to make to really elevate this league. And it's going to be really interesting. I mean, if this is the shot across the bow now, before we've even gotten into the final of the league this season, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And the last thing I will say before I go is, again, remember, and I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it's not a competitor because it's this 3v3 league." It's a competitor. It can grow. It can change to 5v5. It is a professional basketball league based in the United States, and it's being run by owned by players who are in the WNBA. Oh, by the way, who are also involved with the players union in the CBA negotiations. That is a problem. When you understand that, you cannot take anything Napheesa Collier says at face value, just like you can't with Cathy Engelbert either. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I appreciate you checking out the video. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Man, the subs have like not moved since Caitlin went out in July. It's a little bit depressing, but anyway, go have the day you deserve. I'll talk to you later.